Our next panel is about entrepreneurs. How can architects and designers retain the value that they create through their work rather than simply seeing their clients benefit from it? Our moderator is Dezeen's Ben Hobson, and the speakers are Dhara Wong, Benjamin Hubert, and Roksanda Ilincic.
So this panel discussion is all about entrepreneurialism. We've been hearing a lot of amazing architects, designers talking about their work. This panel is all about how architects, designers, creatives generally can turn that creativity and use it to actually make a business, a successful business. I'm joined by three panelists who have done just that. Dhara from architecture, Benjamin from design, and Roksanda from the fashion world. We're running a little bit behind schedule, so I think I'll jump straight in. And Dhara, hand over to you to tell us about yourself and your company.
Okay. First, I want to say thank you, Roksanda. She dressed me today. And so I feel very privileged to be wearing her design right now. And thanks to all of you on Instagram that voted for which outfit to wear today. Right. So, if what you're doing right now is not something that you are just 100% passionate about, then don't even do it. And I say this because building a business is so hard, and chasing money does not work. Because in order to get money, you have to be successful at it. That takes time. And the only real motivation you have is literally your heart. So this is my story about passion, influence, awareness, flexibility, and attitude. And I want to say that I do not have a business background. I never even wrote a business plan. I don't have the bank of mom and dad, unfortunately. And I never got a loan, and I never had an investment. I literally had two things. I had my heart, and I had my gut. And so I want to say I am not a professional at brand building, at business building. I'm literally just telling you what I've done. And it's only been 6 years, so I'm a rather young entrepreneur, and I make mistakes literally every day. And I'm learning every single day. So I'm Dhara Wong. I'm the founder of Design Haus Liberty. For those of you that don't know who we are, we do architecture, interiors. We actually do landscape. And believe it or not, we build brands for other companies, which is not something that I intended to do. It was something that did happen by accident. Right after we would do these architectural projects, we knew the whole story. We came up with the concept. So it seemed very natural that we then did the wayfinding, the branding, and this is something that I actually love doing. I love talking to CEOs. I love knowing their brands, and I love materializing that into an actual environment that influences the user experience and really gets to the root of what their brand is. So this was a client of ours that wanted to blend botany with high technology and chemistry. So we created this futuristic apothecary for her, and that's just a small example of what we do. So let's rewind. How did I get here? So 6 years ago, I was in this tiny, tiny studio in Notting Hill. The girl next to me went to Harvard with me. Now, she was not my business partner, but this was our first co-working, probably office, our own makeshift co-working office. And we shared operational costs, and we shared the cost of staff. And this was my first lesson, and that was influence. And I remember a mentor of mine, Thomas Heatherwick, told me that when he was at school, he got his classmates to build his first vision for free by just sharing it with them. And I remember at this point, I had to recruit people, but I had no money. So I had to convince them that we were going to be this big global design office. And one of my first hires actually became my first partner. So a lot of building a business is about faith. At the time, our clients were these kind of small, like one-man band type of developers. They were doing like 1 to 3 type of flats. But we had no money, we had no budget. One thing we definitely adhered to, though, was creativity and our obsession with materiality. and how we can manipulate just standard off-the-shelf materials into creating possibilities rather than what they were, which made our clients really good for tech companies, which was booming at the time. So we did a lot of tech companies, and we focused on spatial intervention with basically no money. Of course, I was keenly aware that if I did want a big, ambitious international business, we really had to shift our clients very quickly. But why would a big institutional fund or developer hire me, like little studio Notting Hill Group? So instead of knocking on their front door, because certainly they wouldn't listen to me, I got to know the property industry. I wanted to know who the influencers were, who were consulting for the developers, and I built a relationship with them. So through the back door, big institutions started to trust us. This is one of our first big breaks. It's South Bank Tower at CIT. And then our second big break was a £200 million project with Starwood Capital. It was a mixed-use development. And even in my second year, we grew to 25 people, which was very scary. We still adhere to design, and that was the core of what we were passionate about. It was always about contextual material, which in this case was the black brick, using technology and innovation to manipulate that material. So we scripted the brick, created a feature wall, it turned into mail slots. Somehow we commercialized something we loved to do. So in the third and fourth year, Brexit started to hit, and I came up with my second business. I had a startup business called Vivahouse. The premise of it was modular pop-up housing that could convert commercial spaces very quickly. And now we have 2 sites in Tooting and Soho that are fully occupied. And then in my fourth and fifth year, China just opened their doors to us. And we started designing with all of our passion. We had an unlimited budget. We weren't constrained on design. And this was when we were really feeling like we could finally do the things we wanted to do instead of things we were being told to do. So the company grew about 200% at this point. And then we brought that back to London. This is Greenwich Peninsula by Night Dragon. And as I'm walking through it and it's getting built, I can see all of my experiences of when I was working at Herzog Meuron formulating into what I'm doing today. Of course, we add our own vibrancy with colors. We make it very much ours. What I'm interested in next is actually building a relationship with you, which is the consumer. So we're looking at an affordable designer furniture line. So optimism and opportunity are intertwined. If you own your own business, you're your own opportunity maker, and it is your job to connect those dots. So I constantly do this thing I call farming, and what that means is I plant these seeds of what I want to do, and then one day a tree springs up out of nowhere. So this is a project that I'm doing with Patrick Schumacher, who's sitting right here, and I'm hoping that it is my next tree. Sorry, one of my last slides is when I was done working for Foster & Partners, and I was like 29, I felt really lost, and I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know where my career was heading. So I dabbled with an installation maker, and as a result, my company now has an installation and a lighting team. And one of our reoccurring clients is Cartier. Globally, it's a very successful part of our business. I'm very proud of it. And my point is that every single person out there right now is already a brand. You're a brand because what that means is it's a string of your experiences in the past and what you're doing right now. And all you have to do is package it in a way that makes it sellable, or so that you can raise the money to build out your vision. And my last slide is that I'm a really big believer of energy and the exchange of energy. And I think it's really important that the people you surround yourself with are really positive, because sometimes when business gets very hard, which it will, you have to ask yourself why you started, and it was for the passion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dhara. Thanks, Dhara. Benjamin, before you jump up, I've just got one quick question for Dhara. You talked a lot about a lot of major architecture firms that you worked with before. Was it always your ambition to start your own firm and your own business, and what kind of drove you to do that?
I think it's natural for us to be afraid to start our own thing. And when we're asked, like, do you want your own business inside, we're like, oh, yeah, I do. But we don't say it because we're embarrassed or we're, like, afraid of failure. So we say, oh, no, I couldn't actually do that when we want to. So I think innately inside, I always knew I wanted my own business. I was a terrible employee, just so you guys know. I'm absolutely useless at, and like anyone that works with me can tell you, I'm useless at executing anything. But like all of my skill sets were of an entrepreneur, and I honestly think the universe has a way of readjusting itself. So if you're doing something that's not suited towards you, even if you don't try, it'll come back and it'll get you. Like I didn't want to be an architect with an architecture practice, but it kept following me and it came out. So I started a business by accident. I started my second business by accident. I'm about to start a third business, and that is by accident. And I'm very good at planting accidents. So I just think that a lot of it comes with confidence. And I think that confidence comes at a different stage for everybody, especially for young women.
So your businesses kind of chose you rather than you choosing them.
100%. And for every single person in the audience, whatever you end up doing, it's going to choose you. You almost like don't even have, you know, people say time will resolve everything. It's 100% true. If you're with someone you don't love, you're doing something you don't love, it will resolve itself because it's your heart and it doesn't lie. Passion doesn't lie.
Cool. Cheers, Dhara. Right, Benjamin, you're up.
Sure.
Go for it.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Benjamin Hubert. So I'm the founder and creative director of Leia. Leia is a strategic design agency in East London. Dhara, you did amazing. We have like 5 to 6 minutes to do this, so there's like a million slides. We did an amazing job. Okay, so I'm going to start from today, do a little bit going backwards, and then touch on a bit of work. So this is the studio. We're about 30 people now, tons of Photoshop on this image as well, but it's like a whole bunch of people sitting together, working together, collaborating, a range of industrial designers, digital designers, branding guys, and interior architects for installations. The space is pretty collaborative. So this is a big warehouse space above other creative businesses. And we do a lot of bringing clients in here and all the kinds of things that creative agencies do. And we do this a lot. So we share, we explore, we do a lot of work with materials. And this process has been happening now since 2010, where I quit my day job, like Dhara, not an amazing employee. And I think you end up only having one choice, which is go your own way. So we were a tiny little boutique studio. So obviously started with myself and then a couple of people, but really tiny furniture and lighting. And this is a more recent piece, but really in that world of like Milan, London Design Week, New York Design Week, you know, pitching your heart out, going around stands and saying, yeah, I can design your next chair, which looking back was probably a slightly narrow thing to do. But it was kind of interesting to learn how the industry worked. So we did a lot of this work with some of the big Italian guys, some of the Northern European guys, you know, from the Morosos and Capellinis to the Fritz Hansens and Vitras and people like this. And we still work with these guys. They give the studio a softness and a lightness and a lifestyle approach, which softens what's become a much bigger part of the business, and probably why I'm here, as to why Leia's becoming a bigger entity. But, you know, we've done this with fashion design as well, so slightly in Roxanda's world. This was Christopher Rayburn and his team, you know, finding really smart people that are doing incredible things with materials, process and construction, and collaborating with them. So we've been doing this recently. One thing I did a few years ago was stand up in South Africa, in Cape Town, at Design in Durban, which is an amazing event, by the way, if anyone is lucky enough to go down there, and talk about how we pivoted from a design studio under my name to a design studio called Leia, where we stopped pitching, we stopped doing so much furniture, we stopped doing the things that are super lifestyle and super would like to have, but you don't need to have as a business or a person. And we started working with charities and we started working with organizations that need design as a powerful tool for change. So this was Maggie's cancer charity. And we've been investing in smaller businesses and been working in much more of a entrepreneurial equity type model where we've been working with startups in fintech. So this was a tracker in cryptocurrency. Panasonic, where we've been softening their identity and really delivering things that, again, feel much more lifestyle and in tune with the way people are living, not just now, but next. We started a brand with another entrepreneur called Noli, where we delivered a whole suite of things that sort of revolutionized really boring products like cables. But I would argue that a designer has more of a remit and more of a responsibility to make that a little bit better than to make another seat slightly more sittable. We do quite a bit of digital work. So one of the things that's been a big growth area for us, obviously, with the way we live and work now, is really bringing service and digital to partner with the industrial design work that we've been known for. So that team has really been expanding. This was a sports tracker for, if anyone's been watching the Rugby World Cup, you'll notice a little pocket on the back of their shirts. So we help design a little product that goes in the back there and track your speed and performance. So really, like, how do you go from designing a piece of furniture to a tracker in the Rugby World Cup final? So we can talk about that again a little bit later, but this is the guy. We've worked with Nike and some of the big sports guys to recontextualize their materials and process and look at products and systems that perhaps need their nous in materials and expertise more than just another sneaker. We've worked with Airbus to revolutionize the way that you sit and the way you're understanding how you're sitting and your emotional comfort when you're flying economy, to put it in a very wordy way. But this was really a project around, thinking about smart materials and how they can inform you how to be more comfortable whilst using less materials when you fly, so it's a bit lighter on the planet. Work with brands like Neo, so super big startup in China. So really thinking about, again, how to bring a softness and approachability and a lifestyle quality to the automotive world, which traditionally quite masculine, traditionally quite hard, traditionally quite techy as an aesthetic. And again, this expanded into the digital remit as well. So what I'm trying to do here is sort of compound a 45-minute talk into 5 minutes to give you some super top-liners in terms of the projects that we've worked on. And I'll finish, because I know someone's flashing up and you need to get off the microphone sign at me. We finished with a project which has also opened up a new opportunity for us, which is in spatial design. So particularly in installations, particularly around activations, particularly around how you can identify and interface with a brand on more than just a product and service level, but on an experience of walking into a space, of experience the lighting, of experience the emotion and the subtle sensibilities of values of a brand. So for example, this was a project that we put into the V&A for 6 weeks around London Design Festival to highlight the most tedious of things, the head of a shaver. That's a longer discussion to say how this relates to a shaver, but needless to say, they were launching a new blade for their shaver. And then finally, this was a project that we did in Milan this year. So for another, you could argue, slightly tedious product experience, which is a kitchen surface material and brand. I mean, maybe Dhara, etc., will disagree and say this is a super lovely material to work with and to display. But this was around how you create architecture from a material that is much overlooked and always considered to be used in an application which is perhaps a little less sexy than building interiors and exteriors of building. This is all about lighting and water and how lights can transform and inform architecture. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Benjamin. Well done. You can catch your breath now. Before you go, Roxanne, I've just got one question for Benjamin before you go. Dhara was talking about, well, I think you said, Dhara, you never had a business plan, a series of accidents. You talked about in 2015, you kind of pivoted to, or you rebranded, right? You changed the name of your studio from Benjamin Hubert Limited to Leia, which I guess must have been a very deliberate decision, and presumably there was a kind of business plan behind that. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that decision that you made and why.
A business plan is definitely a strong word. I think there was, to cut a long story short, having your name above the door means people come to you for quite often quite a singular thing. And my background and training and the team we were starting to build was pretty diverse, and everyone's got their own point of view, and it's quite diplomatic the way we work. And having my name above the door became a little bit dogmatic and a little bit too singular. So we knew we needed a more open feeling studio so that we could work with the tech, we could work with a charity, we could work with the things that don't necessarily want the designer signature on the bottom of a chair. So this layer pivot was intentional, but extremely scary. I mean, we played with initials for a long time, and then, you know, if we're going to do it, we might as well do it in a meaningful way. And so in summary, we went from sort of the 4 or 5 people to the 30 people in the last couple of years because of this decision. And I'd love to say it was super planned, but it had intent, but it was a big step.
So yeah, you were saying to me earlier that before that change, you were about 5 people, and then kind of you changed the name, and then you've grown now to about 30. What is it, do you think, about that name change that made that happen? I noticed a lot of the projects you used to do were mainly furniture, and then after Leia, it seems to be like fintech, aerospace, kind of wider industries. Is that all because of the name?
If only it was that easy, right? It was about definitely being more open to opportunities and having a platform that we could communicate to invite those opportunities. So that's where the name, the positioning, your portals, your websites, your platforms allowed you to have different types of conversations. But we were building a team of experts in different areas that could deliver on this. We're having constant conversations in the background to say what we could be doing, not just what we are doing. And even now, if you look at, if you go on the website, it's still the tip of an iceberg. Like, anybody will speak to, that speaks in this conference today or here at the moment. It's a very small slither of what we do, but you need a platform in order to kind of project from. And for us, Leia, which really is a very open word that you can interpret in lots of different ways, allowed us to have that more open conversation. Great.
Cheers, Benjamin. All right, Roksanda, you're up.
Hi, everybody, and welcome.
You're going to need... No, the mic's fine.
Yes. I have a slightly different presentation, actually. I have my slides all kept until the end, so if you can please let me know 3 minutes or 2 minutes before the end. And I wanted more to talk about my background and how basically dreams are possible to become reality, and how it's absolutely possible, as Dhara said, that if you believe in yourself, if you believe in your idea, and if you create almost like group of people that are going to help you to get that idea further, that anything is possible. So I'm going to go all the way back to actually Belgrade, to Serbia, where I'm from. And just to tell you a story about a girl that always wanted to be fashion designer. I always wanted to do fashion, but unfortunately, coming from where I am, being fashion designer wasn't really a profession that had many workspaces, or being independent fashion designer wasn't even an option. So therefore, I actually enrolled myself to study architecture, and just kind of on a side, because I just love fashion so much, I also studied fashion, or actually Faculty of Applied Arts that inside my minute space had fashion as well. And it's something, again, Dhara, that you said that you can't run away from who you are and what you love, because I had such a big desire to express myself, to communicate with the world through the fashion, that I just simply couldn't kind of run away from it. So there we are. I'm studying architecture and fashion on the side. And of course, rather than spending all the money on architecture magazines, I was spending every money on fashion magazines. And that's how I discovered St. Martin's and incredible Louise Wilson. And again, just to put things in a perspective, that was the time there were not much, social media, no Instagram, even computers and websites. Like, for example, St. Martin's didn't have a website. So it was very, very hard to even come across those informations. Not mentioning any age, but this was more than 20 years ago. So just so you know. So I was like literally reading almost like a Bible, all those magazines. And I started to come across name of Central St. Martin's and Louise Wilson, and all of my favorite designers and inspirational designers were coming from the same school. And I just decided that no matter what, against all the odds, I'm going to pack my bags and come to London and just see what that school is about and how can I apply. And this is also interesting now when I just say how can I apply, because you couldn't even get information then in Serbia 20 years ago. How do you apply to St. Martin's? So I literally had to buy a ticket, come to London and personally knock on a door and see how do I get in. And then interestingly, and very lucky for myself, when I came here, it was, Louise was doing exams for the next generation of MA students. And you know, I came to register office and asked, how can I see her? And they said the only way for you to see her is if you actually apply to do MA course. So that's what I did, and that was my first encounter with famous Louise. And I didn't have portfolio, I didn't have anything. I just knocked on the door and I said, sorry, excuse me, I'm just here actually to see what I need to get in, and, you know, do I need a portfolio? What would you like to see? And of course, she was known for being very, how should I put it? very, very particular in a way that she was communicating with people. So she almost kind of chucked me out of the office and then called me back in. And it was kind of almost love at the first sight. So luckily I got accepted, and it was almost something that I couldn't believe. I couldn't believe that happened. And of course, the following year I came in and started a very famous course at St. Martin's that taught me everything. First of all, it taught me how little I know about fashion, and actually that I just had to start all over again. It was a master's course, but it was more like a school of life, because Louise had this incredible way of kind of stripping you down of all your beliefs and making you start again. And what I realized is that all the things that I thought I liked, which were very fashionable and kind of following the trends, are things that I shouldn't be doing, and that I have to look deep in myself, really with a clear soul, see what I like, what I believe in, and try to build something completely new that is very, very, very personal. And I said very, very, very personal on purpose, because I think it's so important that when you start your own business, you have this clear vision of who you are, what you believe in. And I think that's the only way that you can succeed. And like you guys, I didn't have any investment. I didn't have parents or a partner, anybody that can put money in. So I did some freelance job after I graduated to just kind of get enough money to do my first show. And my first show was very small. I only had 12 outfits. And they were all dresses. They were all cocktail or evening dresses. So the offer was very, very small. And I surrounded myself with important people. I had incredible PR who was doing everything for me out of love, because I didn't have money to afford her. She believed in me, and she managed to find us a free venue, free models, and literally with the help of love, friends, people who believed in me, which were not many at the time, I literally single-handedly did that first show on my own. So I kind of did everything more or less myself without a single employee. And that's when the magic happened, really. The people came, the very important people came. Oh my God, 1 minute left. No, I'm so sorry. Okay, quick. So very important people came and saw that genuinity in what I produced. They bought my collection, incredible store at the time, Brown's, and also Harvey Nichols, the big department store, were the first people who invested in me. And then everything then followed, but very organically later. I'm really sorry. I need to really speed up so that you can see some of the things that I created. Now I'm stocked all over the world in most prestigious boutiques everywhere. And my ethos and what I'm doing very much now, while having this platform that can talk to people, it's really trying to support other women, trying to support others, trying to support people who are possibly in a similar situation as I was when I was starting. So this is my show. At the moment is not the latest one, but the one before, Autumn Winter. And it's the one that I collaborated with incredible artist trio called Troika. So you can see their beautiful piece of art that was created for my show, and all the reflections and inspiration that you can probably kind of trace from one image to another in my design. I would like you to kind of realize and really appreciate this beauty of what they created, because it looks that it's done digitally, but actually all those screens are their pieces of art that were positioned on 5 tons of salt that was brought into the venue, and then obviously after that given to town of London for winter season. So nothing is wasted. I'm just going to slightly speed up because unfortunately the time is gone. This is my latest show done in Serpentine Pavilion. I'm really, really always trying to bring art and architecture into my work. So this is, as I said, done in Serpent Pavilion, and the catwalk that you can see little elements of it on the right-hand side is actually inspired by Christo's floating island. Again, another reference to exhibition that Serpentine had in. Very important for me is development of my fabrics. Again, elements from backstage. You can see the fabrications here, which are very kind of forward and technical and arty as well. They combine architecture as well and the movements. Movement is a big inspiration for me as well, and this is something where I actually wanted to talk more, how you can expand your vision through other artists. This particularly is Holly Blakely, incredible dancer and choreographer in London, and is somebody that I kind of did one of my lookbooks with. Then I expanded from just doing fashion into interior design as well with this latest project that I did at Guest Holders, curated apartment that I curated with several women. These particular slides that you're looking at are done by artist Caroline Denevaux, Parisian artist, again, somebody that I admire and try to support as much as I can. Those are all the elements from the apartment. And this is my latest collaboration with a big giant Lululemon sportswear. Again, another example how you can grow the business and build it with another companies and another people. But unfortunately, my time is definitely up. So sorry. Very bad
Thank
time.
you, Roksanda. We maybe didn't see as much of your work as you'd have liked, but at least we have Dhara wearing your work, so in a way you've got a slide on stage for the whole time.
I needed about another 50 minutes at least.
Because I think you were probably rushed for time, you talked a lot about kind of going up to your first collection and then kind of skipped ahead to being in stores around the world. So fill in that gap for us. How did you become a successful brand from that first show, which you did all on your own?
Yes, well, that happened very, very organically. So at the beginning, as I said, I had only few stockists, but they were quite a key luxury retailers. And somehow everything led to another. So from the money that I would get from them, I would then kind of build my shows to be slightly bigger. Then I would get more stockists. So it was kind of growing until 2015. When I got investment, and thanks to this investment, I kind of started to grow much quicker. And above all, I opened my incredible store in Mount Street, which was really kind of a crossroad for me, because once you have your own retail store, you can really create your own world. So it's not just about one category, but it's really about the whole lifestyle.
And how did you kind of get that? Because Dhara was talking about in her early career having to kind of almost front to seem bigger than she was, to give clients the confidence in her to give them projects. How did you manage to convince an investor to invest in your company? Because I'm sure that's something that a lot of young designers would be interested to know.
Yes, well, by that point, I was already quite established as a designer. I think it's quite interesting to slightly mention the story before. How did I get from this almost like, working in your bedroom designer and into brand that I am today? And I think that kind of happened, as I said, kind of organically, but also with the help of certain bursaries and sponsorships that were existing here, which I think it's very important as a fashion designer to take advantage of them, because I think that without them, I wouldn't be able to reach that point when I was ready to get investment. And then at the point when I started to look for investment, I already had my store lined up. So I already had kind of signed lease for that incredible space. Incredible David Ajay also signed up to do interior. So, like a healthy turnover, everything, organization that was already put in place within the company. So I think to investor, the business looked quite attractive and exciting. And journey to get to that space was very bumpy, I must say, because I don't come from business school. I learn everything as I go. And it was more kind of trial and error of learning on my own mistakes, but also mistakes of my peers and, people that I read about. So I think it's important to kind of learn all of this and not to think that things happen overnight, because to some people, they say to me, oh my God, you grow so you're doing so well. This just kind of happens so quickly. but it didn't. Everything takes long time, long determination, and believe in yourself, because out there's many obstacles, both business-wise and also critique-wise. I was getting good critiques, but also bad as well. And I think it's important that you find a way and surround yourself with the people that are on the same page as you.
You talked about having to kind of learn business. I think a lot of creatives maybe struggle with that side of things. Benjamin, you're still sole owner, sole runner of your company. I don't think you have a CEO or anything. How have you found making that transition from being someone who purely creates to being someone that has to run a business?
Yeah, good question. I fundamentally believe good design is good business, actually. And I think successful design should translate to something which either helps grow your company or the person's company you're working with or their consumer base, whatever it might be. But unless it does that, it has no context. And these can be interesting exercises in experiments, but ultimately, if you are interested in what this panel is about, which is entrepreneurialism, then it has to translate. Like these guys, I have no formal training in business or anything like that, but I just see the direct connection between the two. And I think it's important that young designers in our studio see that too, and how it's bang for buck. What is this design going to do for the person using it? What's it going to do for the person for the business that's producing it? And then also, I know there's a panel before this, what impact has that on the world around us? And I think it's this complex equation that you have to walk this tightrope on, but you have to be able to tick all these boxes in order for, at least holistically, for you to be able to say that's a successful piece of design. And in that is the success of the business as well.
And do you have any tips for young designers starting out? Any kind of challenges that you overcame? Any mistakes that you made that you would advise others to not to do? And I'll ask that to you, Benjamin, first, but then I think I'll go down and ask the same to all of you.
Yeah, again, a really good question. So I would say it's interesting you talked about people that appreciate your work and people that didn't appreciate your work. And I think you have to have really thick skin. And you have to be able to just chalk it up to experience and move on and learn from it. And I think it's important to listen to some of the negatives around your work and then build on them, but also to focus on the positives. But my advice, which is super cliche and super cheesy, but is be able to take no's. Like the amount of schlepping around Milan Furniture Fair stands I had to do with, whatever, Mr. Cappellini or whatever going, yeah, great, but no, we work with Barbara Osgoby. I was just like, okay, fine. All right, so then I had to do my own thing and then build on that and eventually be able to come to the table with conversations. But it's because of that bloody-mindedness almost.
And Dhara, any tips?
I think a tip, because, I've been in everyone's shoe. I was a designer working for other companies, and what I keep hearing over and over again from designers is like, I'm going to start a company, and I'm going to start it with my designer friend who's an amazing designer. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, aren't you an amazing designer? And this is the biggest thing. Like, designers, they just don't think in a business way. If you're going to start a design company, the one person, if you're going to partner with somebody, if you're going to partner with them, because you don't even need them to be an equal partner, to be quite frank, is someone in operations. This is someone that's writing your contracts, sending out invoices, chasing money, making sure that things are flowing, that your accounts are in order, you've got bookkeeping. Financial is huge. Nobody in design wants to talk about finance. No one in design even wants to talk about making money because that's so taboo. Certainly we're just like way beyond that academically and aesthetically and everything, but no. Design is money. You need money to make design. You need money in order to make your visions happen. So don't shy away from that. And please, for Christ's sake, please don't partner with your friend or because they're an amazing designer or because you guys work together or whatever. That is like, it's just a recipe for disaster. Because like I said, a business is really, really hard. And a business is two components. It's someone who's visionary and very right-brained, and it's someone who's very, very left-brained, who's going to keep you in order, keep you intact, make sure the finances are in place. And that is how you build a business. And in order to scale, you then have to go from being a very generalist. Like, I literally did everything. I was the person that cleaned the studio, that washed the dishes, that made sure I was IT, I was, AV, you name it. And then as I got bigger and bigger, handing off those hats to specialists that were way better than me. I have a CEO, a financial controller, an office manager, an IT specialist. We have everything now, and that's how you scale. You let go of control, you find people better than you, but first and foremost, you don't partner with your friend who's a great designer, because that is what you are. Now, what I can say is I just
Who
read...
is his friend then, Dhara? That didn't work out.
I can name like a gazillion. I give business advice, like literally... I give, like you, like I love helping women. I love helping young entrepreneurs. I love passing work on because we can't say yes to everything, you know. And every single time they're like, oh, I'm going to start a company with my friend. And I'm like, oh, here we go again, you know. But because usually there is a falling out. I'm just saying, you know, even when I worked for Herzog, Herzog was very, you know, this and Meuron was very this. And it's about the equals of two different parts. Sorry, I totally lost track of what I was going to say, but... yeah, that's probably my design tip, is you want to find somebody who has your weakness. And that is the most important thing about business. You have to know your strength. You have to know your weakness. Whatever your weakness is, and mine is kind of finance and organization, give it away ASAP. And that's the only way to survive as a business.
Cool. Okay. And Roksanda, would you agree? What's your take on it?
I would completely agree. I think, Dhara, you covered every single thing. I think I can just add something as well, which I think it's important, that sometimes you just shouldn't follow those advices, because I must say that we are all different and we build companies on a very different principles. And I think you just have to realize what works for you and just follow that. And yes, as a creative, you definitely need the help of somebody, particularly in finance department. And it's very important that you just don't dream all the time, that you're kind of standing dreaming with your head, at the same time standing with both feet kind of steadily on the ground, because no matter how creative, for example, fashion is, it still has to sell, it still needs to be worn, and you always kind of have to balance those two. And I think that balance is the key, balancing everything in life. It's very important. So those two things, I would say.
I would add one more thing, which is probably reinvest, which is, you know, we're all talking about success here and, you know, how it's been a great part to this point where we're lucky enough to speak here. But I think, you know, I had a day job for 4.5 years and then spent all of my time in my basement spray painting and spending money on foam and really boring stuff like that, but constantly reinvesting and constantly putting all your money and belief back into it in order for it to become something. Otherwise, you know, if you're not going to invest in it, no one else is.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I think we're running over, so we won't have any time for audience questions. We will have a break now. Oh, Marcus?
4 minutes if you want to do
a couple more minutes.
Yeah,
okay, okay, great. In which case,
it's all my fault, guys.
From the audience, any questions for our panel?
Hi, Roksanda.
Hi.
So, fashion designer, can you imagine yourself doing algae material on the catwalk?
Yes, sustainability, right. Very, very important. Let's come to that. That was part of my speech, but listen, that was at the kind of minute 35 and I had 7. Yes, I think it's my generation of designers. We did something quite extraordinary. It wasn't just me. I was lucky enough to be in a generation that did that. We decided that it's not just, as I mentioned before, about creativity, but also about things being sold and being worn. And almost like there were about 7 of us. We kind of changed the course of how London fashion works at the time, many years ago. And I think now is the time for me and my fellow designers and the young ones to also change the course, because I think we are on a crossroad, very important. And if we don't change things, I think we won't have this world. We won't have fashion, we won't have architecture, design, anything. And therefore, I'm like a strong believer that in sustainability, in new technologies and the technologies that are using algae and everything else. I was a big believer in using fur and leathers and everything that luxury was demanding. And it's really interesting to see me now when I'm using pleathers and completely change all of my hangers so they're made not from the plastic but from actually recycled plastic from the sea and from the oceans, and all of my packaging is changed as well. But I'm a small label. I think it's important that we think on a global scheme like this. It's not just me, it's everybody, and no matter how small and big, we all have to take part of it. So answer to your question is definitely yes.
We've got time for one more question, if there is one.
Hello. Just going back to what Dhara said, I know you mentioned that you worked for Herzog de Meuron and spent some time with Thomas Heatherwick as well. How important do you think having those like high-profile mentors are like, early on in your career? Like, and when do you sort of find time to carve out what your own aesthetic is away from sort of those early influences?
This is the thing, is when you're working for a very high-profile company, or rather like if you're working for any company, it's very easy for us to slag it off and like feel like we're being overworked and underpaid and all this stuff. But if you guys are really smart, don't make mistakes on your own ticket, on your own company. Learn from where you are and absorb it. Because when I got tired of the company I was working for, I spent a year literally photographing the supplier library, asking every question about planning. I was 29 years old, like, right, when I decided I want to start my own company. What do I know about anything? So what you're doing now and what you've done before, these are your formative years. Don't sit there and be like, I hate my job. No, like, embrace it. Be like, I'm going to stay late. I want to ask all the questions I want. Because if you want to plan your own business, you better be ready. Because when you get off that platform, you are completely alone. There's no path drawn for you. And for me, I was really lucky to work with Herzog and de Meuron. I was a terrible employee, but they had so much faith in me as a person. And because I was, believe it or not, at one point I was nervous and shy. I didn't speak my opinion. I couldn't understand why they had faith in me. And it's not until today that I'm like, okay, they saw something that I didn't even see in myself. And it was something that until I was forced to be an entrepreneur and carry my own weight, that I saw it. And it's only now that I see the influence of Harvard, of Herzog, of, you know, things that I did in my past really coming out, the things that I used to slag off because I was like, I'm working so hard, you know, like even work ethic. Work ethic is something that you learn in these companies, that you learn in school, that you learn from your parents or whatever. Take those and really embrace them and turn them into what you will become. Because like I said, you already are a brand. Everyone is so unique. Personality is a brand. And all you're doing is taking your experiences and selling them. And that's another lesson, is how to become a good salesperson. But yeah, I think that's kind of what Herzog and de Meuron saw in me, was that I had the ability to sell. But I didn't know that at the time.
Great, thanks. So we have to have the sales lecture another time. Thank you to my panel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to everyone, and I think we'll have a break now.